Well, if you grew up in the 90s, much like I did, then this interview might mean just a little bit more. But we are joined by former Hollywood actor, now race car driver, Frankie Muniz. And we get to say that in a big way because you are now taking your racing career full time next year.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled to announce that I'll be racing full time in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Been something. I can't even say that it's been a dream. It seemed like something that was so far fetched. As a kid, growing up watching the sport, I never really thought I would be a race car driver. But the fact that I made it here and just ready to get to work, right? Ready for the season already, and to prove that I can do it and be out there.
What did this transition look like for you? And I'll just go ahead and make mention. I interviewed you yesterday locally. Yeah. So this is a big challenge that Dirty Mo Media is putting you through, that we're going to make this interview even more interesting, more in depth. But you were telling me a little bit about your story yesterday, and it's pretty intriguing because not only were you a race fan before your acting career, but you did racing after that too.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up a huge fan of racing. I don't come from a family that was involved in racing or even watch racing, but I would wake up Sunday mornings and watch the Formula One race and watch the IndyCar races and watch the NASCAR races. 8 years old, I came down here to Charlotte Motor Speedway and went to my first NASCAR race. Slept in an RV in the infield with some friends and was hooked. But even at that moment, like, I never thought, it didn't even cross my mind of going like, man, I want to do that. It seemed like saying you want to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you don't grow up in that world, like, how do you become a race car driver? How do you become, is one of those things to me. So I was even at the 2001 Daytona 500. I was 16 at the time, but I still didn't have the urge to go racing. I just loved it as a fan. And I got to do the pro celebrity race that they put on in the Long Beach Grand Prix in 2004, and I won that. And honestly, that feeling of crossing the finish line first, like, I've never experienced joy like that. Yeah. And I was like addicted, But even at that point, how do you become a race car driver? A pro team had approached me and just offered me a test just for fun, just to see how I did. And it ended up I was quicker than their driver that they'd already signed.
Wow.
So they signed me to a 2-year development deal. I did Formula BMW for a year, then moved up to the Champ Car Atlantic Championships with the ambition of going to Champ Car, or, what is now IndyCar. And next thing I knew, I was a race car driver. Like, it happened really fast. So I kind of threw myself off the deep end then, right? I think I had like 2 or 3 test days before my first race in Formula BMW. I was racing against Sebastian Vettel, who became a F1 champion, Daniel Ricciardo. And it's kind of how I do things. Like, if I'm going to commit to something, I want to do it. But I also, like, I don't want to beat around the bush, right? I want to jump in, and I feel like the best way to learn is to just dive in and do it. And, had some success there until I got hurt. And sorry, I talk a long time. I told you.
No, you're fine. This makes my job super easy. Yeah.
No, but even then, so 2009, I got really badly hurt. I broke my back. I had pins put in my hand. Lots of broken bones from a crash that happened, and always thought I'd go back racing, but it just took so long to heal. So I had an IndyCar ride for 2010. Couldn't do it because I was still healing at that time. And then life just kind of took over. I started doing other things. I joined a band, just on tour doing that for a while, just jumped around a bunch of things. And it wasn't until 2021, my son was born. And, I think a lot of people, when they have kids, they usually maybe stop taking risks or slow down a little bit. But I was holding him literally the day he was born in the hospital room. And I was looking at him and I went, who is my son going to grow up and think that his dad is, right? Because I could say like, oh, I used to do this, I did that, I did all these things, but I wanted him to see me like working really hard towards something that isn't easy, right? That, is very few people find success in it, but like working really hard and the ups and downs that come along with it, and have him grow up seeing me try to achieve those goals. And I said, you know what? I want to go back racing. I have unfinished business in the racing world, but you know what? I know I did open wheel stuff. I want to go NASCAR racing. I want to go stock car racing. So really my debut in a stock car was Daytona last year in the ARCA car,
Wow.
And I had no idea what to expect. And, but I loved it and, came up to speed pretty quickly, and, here we are going truck racing now. So
I love that about your son. I have 2 young kids, and I think it's so important for them to see that you're chasing your dream while also, just showing them kind of what hard work and that determination looks like. I think that's really cool. I want to kind of rewind the back. You were saying you got a couple of chances early on in your career, and you just stepped in a car. Like, did you not? I mean, for those early races, you didn't have any experience before that?
Nothing. I mean, minus the celebrity race, they would bring you out to Willow Springs for like a few weekends before the race to kind of, and had instructors and try to teach you as much as possible. But no, I mean, I really had no idea what I was doing. Like, I remember even showing up to the first couple of races and being like, I don't know the rules. Like, I don't, like, what am I not allowed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, but I just kind of dove in and learned as I went. And, fortunately, like, I feel like with racing, there's a little bit of, you either have it or you don't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody can just jump in a race car and be quick or even eventually become quick. So you have to have, I think, the natural ability to begin with, which I guess I had, and then just trying to perfect it. And the best way to do that is just being in a car, right? Is to do it, to be racing. And that's what I did.
Yeah, I don't even know how long we've been talking currently right now, but we've made it through this interview without mentioning Malcolm in the Middle, which is how I feel like, people, like I said, in the 90s, if you grew up then, that's certainly where you're recognizable from. You also had several other movies like Agent Cody Banks. I mean, this is either going to date, I don't know if it's going to date me for listeners. I mean, they're going to seem old or too young for our listeners, but like Miracle in Lane 2, like the Disney Channel original.
I should say that's where I got the racing bug.
There you go.
Doing the soapbox derby.
That, yeah, that's your first experience. Exactly. We all got to witness that, yeah. But I don't know, I guess just going back to your acting career and kind of how you got involved in that, and now turning over a page in your career to a race car driver. Do you like that fans recognize you from that? Do you feel like that adds maybe a connection to some of the race fans out there?
Yeah, I've always been proud of the things I've done in the past, especially the older I get, right? You have a greater appreciation for, the opportunity you had and the fact that people come up to me. The show ended in 2006, so 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And I get people all the time coming up saying, "Oh, I love the show. It brought my family closer," or whatever it may be. And that's a pretty cool feeling to have been a part of something that people love. So I don't shy away from it. Like, I think there are some actors that don't want to, they want to move on from what they used to do in the past. I love it. It was a great thing. I got the opportunity I have now. I'm saying, even becoming a race car driver because I was in a pro celebrity race,
Yeah.
So it all kind of lent a hand. I would say the only thing it's not even tough. When I made the debut last year in ARCA in Daytona, there were a lot of eyes on us, where when most people make maybe their debut, no one's really looking. But what was really cool for the ARCA practice, we had one practice session in Daytona, I was fastest. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty cool to come out with a bang like that. You know what I mean? And I think it shocked me. So I know it shocked everybody else.
Yeah. I'm not sure how Hollywood is. I have to imagine there's kind of like getting in with Hollywood and then getting out. And then I kind of wonder about NASCAR and just kind of your acceptance as you have started racing and other, race car drivers, other teams out there. What's that acceptance level like, do you think, personally?
I think initially when I said I was coming back racing, because even when I raced, 15 years ago, there wasn't social media like there is now. So I don't even think people really knew. People knew, but not really, not like they do now. But I think people thought it was just going to be like a publicity thing. I was going to run in the back in ARCA. You know what I mean? I was just going out there wasting my money. I've heard that a lot. But the one amazing thing about racing that I love, definitely compared to being an actor, is it's not subjective, right? It's not like, I can think I did a great job in the movie and think I did a good job acting and I put my soul into a character and people see it and they're like, meh, it was okay. If you're good and you belong, you're at the top of the leaderboard and you at least can always kind of see where you stand. So I love that. So what I want to do is I don't want to tell people I'm a race car driver, right? I don't want people just to talk about it. I want them to believe it. I want them to see it. I want them to see me racing and being competitive and earning respect as a driver. That's what I want to do. I don't expect people to accept me or respect it until I've proven it. But that's happened. There's only so much that people can say about someone not belonging when they're beating you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even in ARCA, I remember people being like, oh, he's going to be no good. It's going to be awful. And then I was leading the championship halfway through the season. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we were doing pretty good. So, that's the best way. And, hopefully we can do that in the truck series. Obviously it's a big step up, everybody who's out there is really, really good and has tons of experience. I still think like this weekend at Homestead will be my 25th oval race of my life.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So it's not, I really don't have a ton of experience in the stock cars. So I know I have a ton to learn, but I'm working so hard inside the car, outside the car with the team. I was in the simulator for 4 hours yesterday, like doing everything I can to not be at a disadvantage, considering I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage with the amount of experience I have.
Right. And yesterday and earlier this week, it was the big announcement that you're moving to the Truck Series full time. And that's a huge move. Did any other of the teams, race car drivers, did they reach out to you at all, congratulate you? Like what's that level of acceptance?
No,
like?
I've had a ton of people reaching out and saying congrats. This year was a little tough for me because my plans fell through very, very late, right before Daytona. So I became a part-time driver this year, and it's really tough to be part-time, right? Especially when you do lack experience. It's hard to come in, on race 12 for your first race and, compete against guys who are racing every single week. But I'm so excited to have the announcement out early. We have time as a team to work together to really, really prep for the season. And it's just nice being able to look at the schedule and know where I'm going to be next year. Even just for me as a human and my family and planning and, life. So I'm so thrilled to have the announcement out, and the response has been super, super positive. But, now I got to back it up and go perform.
And experience is going to be helpful in that regard next season. But you do have a little bit more of experience on the track ahead, like before the season even ends.
Yeah, I'm racing at Homestead, and then I'll be racing at Phoenix with my team. And, we're using that as I don't want to call it a test session. It's not. Obviously, I'm going there and I'm going to be as competitive as I can be, but really just kind of continuing to gel. I've still in my life only done a few green flag pit stops. So like as weird as that sounds, like that's something that I just got to keep doing to experience different scenarios to where when I'm in the scenario next year, it's not a first. And so we're taking it as like a really good practice session, just keep gelling as a team and see what we can do.
You were talking about this with me a little bit earlier, but what were the differences between Nashville and Kansas? Because you said that one, maybe you didn't really notice the difference in the truck, and then Kansas was a little bit different.
Nashville was the first time I ever drove the truck ever, and everyone was like, oh, the trucks move around so much in dirty air, and if someone comes on your outside, like they'll suck the truck around. And so I don't know if I had in my head that it was going to be this crazy, crazy feeling, and I didn't really feel that. Like I felt just comfortable and came up to speed pretty good. And but then Kansas, I definitely felt what they were talking about. How much your vehicle is affected by anybody around you.
So what did you feel?
I don't want to say you feel out of control, but like it literally like changes, depending on where that car is or where they go, like it completely changes what you feel in the corner, and you have to learn to anticipate what the truck's going to do. You need to be ahead of it. And because I'm experiencing it for the first time, I don't know what it's going to do. So that's part of like why we're like, hey, we get a few extra races this year to kind of learn that and be better prepared for next season. And that's what I'm doing. But it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the two truck races I've done because you can affect other people's races so much with your car placement and all that, and just kind of trying to figure that out. But I think the racing is really fun. The trucks race a little bit closer because they poke such a big hole in the air. So everyone kind of gets sucked up, and it makes for as a driver, it's never not exciting.
Yeah, I want to move a little bit off track for a second and kind of get back on it too, in a sense, because you've done Hollywood. You mentioned the band.
Yeah.
Now you're a race car driver. I mean, I don't even know if anybody has this much versatility in life ever, so that's pretty cool. But is there anything from maybe the band or Hollywood that you can at all implement in the racing world, like any lesson?
I'd say there's two things. One's a very simple one. I'm used to being interviewed.
Yeah.
I've done it since I was 8
You're
years
really
old.
good to interview, so it's easy. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't have to go through media training. You know what I mean? But so I could say that. And then the other thing is with the band or even as an actor, like when it's time to perform, like you have to do it. Like especially anything live, if I started in theater, I was on Broadway, like that kind of thing, or the band, you got to go out in front of all the people and you got to do it perfect. You got to perform. And so in that sense, I mean, obviously I still get nerves, even yesterday, like for the announcement, I was super nervous before that first interview, just with, I guess, excitement. But that's what I think draws me to it as well. You know what I mean? The fact that it does get your juices flowing in some kind of way, but I don't know, I never fully felt like, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I always felt like a little bit of an outsider when I was in Hollywood. You know what I mean? I remember I was nominated for an Emmy the first year, I think 2001, 2002. And I remember showing up to the red carpet and feeling like, how did they let me in here? But never mind, like I was nominated. You know what I mean? Like I just never felt like I was part of that Hollywood world. It always just felt like I was just like an outcast that got to show up, And, as a race car driver, even though I'm still new in it, when I'm at the racetrack, I feel like it's where I'm supposed to be, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
That,
when I put my helmet on, no matter what the nerves are, no matter what it is, I put that visor down, I go, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it's a cool feeling having done a lot of different things. I've owned businesses. I did the band. I did the acting. I've done a ton of things in my life. But to feel like you're doing what you're supposed to do feels pretty good. So hopefully I can do it for as long as possible. I'm an old rookie in the Craftsman Truck Series.
Yeah.
I'll be 39 next year. So I'm older than most of the moms of the kids who I'm racing against.
Oh, man.
But it's all right. I'm ready for the challenge.
Yeah. How challenging is it going to be in comparison to what you've already done? Or what is most challenging?
I know it's going to be challenging, every aspect of it. Like I said, the competition level once you get up to the truck series is a totally different beast. So, I don't know. I know that I'm, like I said, trying to prepare any way I can to be ready. But really, the only way you're going to be, or to learn and to be ready, is to do it. It's just to throw yourself in there, like I did at Daytona and the ARCA car last year, like I have in really every race I've done so far, and just keep experiencing things. Obviously, I don't want to set too high of a goal that is unachievable. I want to be realistic, knowing that the series is so tough, but at the same time, like I want, and I know the team, Rayon Brothers is super, super motivated to step it up, right? To step up the performance. And I hope that we can do that together for Ford and we can impress some people. So that's really the goal. You know what I mean?
Going back to when you were a younger fan of racing, before this was even maybe thought of as a dream, who was your favorite driver back then?
This is probably an answer. Nothing against him, but this is probably an answer you're not expecting me to say. I was a huge David Green fan because he drove the Slim Jim car, and as a kid, I was like, "Oh man, I love Slim Jims,"
Totally 90s kid, yeah.
But I got to do one of the not one of the first things, but I did an episode of Spin City, and it was with Jeff Gordon. I played a sick kid in the hospital, and he came in saying how he was going to win these races for me, and all this. It was a funny skit. So I met him when I was maybe 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. So that I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in this building, but I became a pretty good big Jeff Gordon fan just because he was always nice to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I was just a fan of racing in general. Like I never specifically had like an alliance to someone. You know what I mean? I just enjoyed watching. I really didn't even know who was in each car. I just was excited watching cars go around the track.
Have you talked to Jeff Gordon at all recently?
I have. I saw him, I think it was maybe Talladega last year, and I've seen him over the last, let's call it 20 years at random events. And what's funny is, it was way before Malcolm. It was way before anybody knew me as an actor or knew my name. And he always, whenever he saw me, he always came up and was like, Frankie, it was always such a great guy to me. But I saw him in the Talladega pit lane, and it was so cool. He's like, man, I'm so proud of what you're doing. Like, I don't know, it's just a weird thing, like to go from that, never knowing that, 20 years later, I would be in his world, you know what I mean, competing in NASCAR.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Got to be a full circle moment a little bit from each career. Is there any big moment, and I'm sure you've had fans from Hollywood, now you've got fans in the racing world, but is there any moment with a fan that really stands out to you that is like a pretty crazy story to tell?
Just in my whole life, or just in the NASCAR world?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I have a lot of crazy stories. I think one of the craziest experiences for me, let's call it, I'm trying to think what year it might have been, maybe 2016, 2017. So the show has been over 10 plus years. You know, I'm used to people coming up to me like here in the States, like, you know, and they say things. Everyone's kind of nice, you know, and good. But I had never experienced what I'm about to tell you. So I flew to Switzerland, and my now wife and I, we were just walking, and I had people like, they were going crazy to where eventually they were chasing us down the streets.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't realize that in France and Switzerland, Malcolm in the Middle is still to this day the #1 show. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So like, but it airs, there's a Malcolm in the Middle channel that airs 24/7, and they watch it all the time. So that was just a weird experience to like feel like I knew the popularity of the show, but then to go somewhere that you've never been. Like I even just went to Ecuador this year, and it was a similar thing. Like Latin America, the show is so massive. And I don't know, it's just so, like I said, being older, I have a greater appreciation for the fact that like my show had an impact on people, and the fact that they get excited to meet me or see me is pretty cool. I will say one of my favorite moments as a race car driver, is when anybody comes up to me and they're like, I've been following your racing. Like, there's nothing that brings me more joy than that. But I remember being at Daytona last year, 2023. So I hadn't even done a race yet. And there was someone wearing my like Frankie Muniz Racing shirt at Daytona.
Nice.
And that was like the coolest thing ever. I don't know why.
You've reached peak.
As an actor,
Yeah.
like, nobody's wearing like a Tom Cruise t-shirt. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's pretty cool. Like, that's pretty cool. I love that. So I don't know. It was like a different experience.
Should Hollywood have fan gear like that?
Yeah, why not?
I know. Like, just incorporate NASCAR gear into
Yeah.
Hollywood.
You know what? Maybe I'll start that company.
That would be good. I have to know too, from your wife's perspective, you've done all these things. She's obviously super supportive of you, and I'm sure she's excited to kind of take this on, especially with your little boy too. She has to think though, like, what's he gonna do next?
Yeah, I mean, when I met her, what was I trying to do then? I think I was trying to get on the PGA Tour.
Like, actually?
Like seriously. She was a pro golfer when I met her, and
wow.
we met at a golf event, and like that was my life. Like I just played golf 4 or 5 times a week. But what's funny is like I remember telling her when we met, because she didn't know that I was on TV. Like she had no idea. I remember her saying like, "Oh, what do you do?" Like, you know, and I had the awkward moment of going like, how do I say I used to be an actor on a TV show? So I was like, yeah, you know, I used to act a little bit. I was a race car driver. I played drum. She's like, you sound like a...
Yeah, like just making it up.
I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like, what am I supposed to say? That's what I did. That's what I
Yeah.
do. I don't know. But I remember talking to her about it saying like, I wish we were together when I was racing before, because there's something about like the community of like being in a race series, right? It's like a traveling circus. You know, you see
Yeah.
everybody, you get to, you know, it's like a fun lifestyle, I think. And I thought that she would really enjoy it. And I remember her actually saying like, I don't know if I'd like that. I don't know if I'd like the fear of watching you race.
Yeah.
So like, but at that time, I really didn't think I was going to go back racing. So it didn't really cross my mind. But when I decided to, and I went to her, she's always been so supportive of anything that I do. Like, it doesn't matter. She's got my back. And so when I decided I wanted to do it, I asked her, and she's like, let's go, let's do it. You know, and even now, she's still so supportive. One thing I will say, like, I decided to do this for my son, for my family. And it's hard. You know what I mean? I'm gone a lot, and try to bring them with me. But at the same time, as she's the most incredible supportive wife that I could ever ask for, but it's not her dream, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's supportive of me, but it's not the lifestyle that she asked for, that she signed up for. So I've got to remember that, you know what I mean? That, you know, make sure she's getting to do the things that she wants to do and strive for, and you know, at the same time, go try to win a championship.
And you also told me off camera this week too that now you're a race car driver, but your wife, when you met her, she didn't even have her driver's license.
She didn't. No, she had always lived in cities that she could take public transportation, or she walked or rode a bike, and so how old was she when I met her? She was maybe 23, 24. And she had never driven anything, but she didn't tell me that. And I remember like I had like 2 cars I needed to move. I was like, hey, just follow me. And she's like, no, I really don't feel comfortable. I'm like, no, we're just going down the street. Like, it's fine. Like, it's not a big
She's
deal.
like, no.
And then she finally said, like, she got there and she was like trembling, shaking. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I've never driven before. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Like, like, what do you mean? So like, I had to basically teach her how to drive.
Wow.
But now she's a champ. So now she's a real good driver.
That's awesome. Thanks to you. And we were talking about this too. It's like this for our listeners. This is kind of a fad recently for a lot of younger people. People are not getting their driver's license, and for us, like when we grew up, it was like the one thing that made you close to being an adult was getting your driver's license.
I think my two like milestone birthdays were 15 because I got my permit, but then 16 because I got my freedom. Right? Having my driver's license, that was the only thing I cared about. I didn't care. Like, I was filming Malcolm in the Middle at the time, and you couldn't ask for days off.
Yeah.
But I was like, just so you know, I will not be here on December 5th, 2001, because I'm getting my driver's license. You know what I mean? And that was like the biggest thing for me. And I think the other milestone birthday was turning 25 because I didn't have to pay that young driver's fee to rent a car.
Yeah.
Well, everything had to do with, driving.
Driving,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's weird to me that I do hear these stories that the kids are like, nah, I don't really care. I don't need to get my license. I'm like, what? Why? How? Like, what do you do? But I don't know. I'm happy to be the age I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, important life lessons to learn, and the true value of getting your driver's license. I don't want to overlook this because you did mention it earlier in our interview, but you were at the 2001 Daytona 500. You got to meet Dale Earnhardt Sr.
I did.
Before the race. What was that like?
I remember just being so in awe. I mean, of the whole day. I got to be the grand marshal for the parade. I drove in the pace car that day, and everything about it was like as a racing fan, like a kid, like magical. You know what I mean? I was in Kenny Schrader's garage, and he gave me an M&M's jacket, and Schrader signed it, Sterling Marlin signed it, Mark Martin signed it, and Dale signed it. Mm-hmm. Those are the 4 signatures I have on that jacket. And I met him at the driver's meeting, and he actually he said to me, he goes, "Man, I just gotta say, I love your show so much. Thank you so much, because it's really brought my daughter and I closer together." Aww. Watching it. And like I remember being just so in awe of that. It's Dale Earnhardt, you know what I mean? And as I was walking to the pace car, he had stopped me again. So like pretty much right before he got in the car, and obviously, tragic day, and still affects me now, you know what I mean, obviously, and everybody, but just grateful I had the opportunity to meet him, and yeah, it's wild to think that now I'm racing and all that, but yeah, yeah.
I think that's something that makes NASCAR so special, is that there's all of these like nostalgic memories. And I know like the NFL and other sports have this, but there's such a connection that you can have with drivers who are talking to you, right? Right before they get in their cars. And I think that's a pretty cool thing to have. And now you're going to get to have that with fans. Do you think about that?
It is weird. There's not many sports, if you think about it, or many athletes that are about to perform that like you can be on the pit lane or be in the garage and literally be talking to them as they're about to go and do it, right? You go to a basketball game, like they're in their locker room, they're getting in the zone, they're doing their warm-ups, then they play the game. Like you really don't have access to them. But, NASCAR does a really good job of allowing people to come in and have the autograph sessions. You really do get to meet a lot of your heroes. So it is a weird thought to think that, the way I felt meeting Dale Earnhardt or meeting Jeff Gordon, meeting all those guys back when I was just a massive fan, that I may have that impact on people too. So I always try to give people the time, and you don't realize that like by you just taking a picture, it could make someone's day. You know what I mean? It could make their week, their year, whatever.
Or their dream. They could be a race car driver one day.
True. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, sometimes I'm not saying it's hard to remember that, but, you are so focused on like what you have to go and do. But, the reason why we're doing it is also for the fans as well. So, you got to keep that in mind that, you got to perform, but, if nobody's watching, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So it's important.
What is Frankie Muniz's mindset right before you step into the car for a race? What's that like?
It's evolved over the last year since I did my first couple ARCA races. I was a nervous wreck. Like I'm talking like just neurotic, like don't ask me to do an interview. Don't ask me to do anything. Like I'm so focused on when I need to eat, what I need to eat, like all that kind of stuff. And I've definitely gotten a lot more comfortable with the fact that like, I know what I'm doing, right? I know I can jump in the car. I have time before we're going to roll out. You got the few pace laps to really kind of get your head in it and be ready to go. But, I've realized that I always tried to plan, if that makes sense. I always try to think like, oh, what happens if this happens? And you really can't do that. It's just a natural reaction in the moment. And, that's what separates the good guys from the bad, right? Because anytime you try to make a plan, it never goes to plan.
Yeah.
Right? What you think is going to happen never happens, and the unexpected happens. So I've just realized that, I did the preparation that I needed to do, and now it's just time to go do the job. So I'm a little more calm, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I used to not sleep before races, all that.
Oh my gosh.
Now I'm like, oh, it's race day. Oh, where's my gloves? I don't even know. No,
Take a nap. Yeah.
I'm not that comfortable.
Is there anything else that we need to know about your journey before you step into the Truck Series full time next season?
No, I just, I want people to know that like I'm taking this seriously. Like I don't expect it to be easy. I don't expect a handout. I don't expect any of that, and I hope people can see the passion I have for it and see the work ethic that I'm putting in. And, hopefully I can earn their respect on track, you know what I mean, with our results. But no, I'm super grateful to everyone who has been accepting, and to NASCAR for allowing me to do it, and Ford Performance. And, it really, I hate to keep saying it, it is a dream come true. Like it's wild to think. I remember even yesterday I called my wife after we made the announcement official, and I went, babe, like I'm actually a NASCAR driver. like I'm a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. It hit me. So, I'm grateful to be here and want to be involved in the sport for a really long time, whether that's as just a driver or, in some capacity as a team owner, whatever it may be. I want to be in this world, and this is just the beginning.
Man, that's awesome. And I'm excited for you and for your family next season. I know a lot of fans are as well. You're an easy guy to pull for. And I'm just going to put this out there. NASCAR, Frankie Muniz needs to give some media training to the drivers on how to do interviews. This is probably one of the more fun interviews I've had recently. So I appreciate it.
I just try to speak what I truly feel. You know what I mean? I watch a lot of interviews of the NASCAR guys, and I go, tell the truth. Like, come on, just tell the truth. Don't just say the talking points. You know what I mean? Like,
you're just saying what we're all thinking in those moments. But anyway, Frankie, we appreciate it. We wish you all the best next season, and we'll be following along.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.